Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the FECJ press briefing. Today's briefer is Mr. Yasushi Takase, Deputy Director General of the Economic Affairs Bureau, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Takase talks about the G8 Lough Erne Summit, and today's briefing is conducted in English only. And before we listen to what Mr. Takase has to say, don't forget to turn your cell phones to the silent mode. Thank you. And today I have one more announcement. Besides the paper on the G8 summit, and you have papers on the Prime Minister's visit to Europe. And if you have any questions about his visit to Europe, Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, Principal Deputy Director of the International Press Division of the Foreign Ministry, will be available for your questions after this briefing. Okay. And without further ado, Mr. Takase, please.
Well, good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yasushi Takase again. I'm Deputy Director General of the Economic Affairs Bureau of the Foreign Ministry. Well, thank you very much for coming to this briefing session. This morning I will try to give you some ideas what our Prime Minister, Mr. Abe, will deliver during the coming Lough Erne Summit meeting. If I dare to summarize or give you some of the most important issues that he may raise during the G8 summit, I would say there are 4 issues. First is, of course, that he will say that his government will continue to do its best to revive Japanese economy, which in turn will contribute to the world economy as a whole. Well, the second is Japan will continue to enhance free trade. And then the third point will be that Japan will work together with its African partners to foster the economic growth in the African region. And fourthly, Japan will continue to combat against terrorism. And now, could you please refer to the document I distributed this morning? So if you turn to the first page, the G8 Lough Erne Summit will be held next week, 17th and 18th June, at Lough Erne in Northern Ireland. As you can see in the picture, it's a golf resort. However, I do understand the readers will not play golf. But I understand Prime Minister Cameron, the host of the summit meeting, chose this Lough Erne Golf Resort. The reason is that he would like to have very frank discussions among the readers themselves. So the access to the venue of is very much limited, very restricted. Not many government officials may not be able to accompany him, and I do understand that the access for the media is also very much restricted. Well, you at the bottom you have the participants, and then as you can see, this is the second time for our Prime Minister to attend a G8 summit meeting. The first time was in 2007 when the summit was held in Heiligendamm in Germany. At the time, Madame Merkel was the chair, and also I understand the President Putin was there too. And now I would like to explain to you what we would like to deliver in the summit meeting in accordance with its agenda. The first agenda is global economy. Under this agenda, there will be 2 sub-issues. The first one is the economic policy. The second one is trade. And while it is expected that the G8 leaders will have a frank exchange of opinions on the current global economic situations, and they will discuss how to promote growth and jobs. And here, our Prime Minister, Mr. Abe, will explain his Abenomics, his economic policy to revive Japanese economy. As you already know, this Abenomics is consisted of 3 prongs. There are the bold monetary policy. The second is the flexible fiscal policy. And the third one is a growth strategy that encourages private sector investment. And the first 2 prongs, and the broad monetary policy and flexible fiscal policy, they are already implemented. And well, so far, I understand that the market has responded positively, although now at this moment there are some adjustment or some volatilities can be observed, but by and all, it is giving an effect on our economy. And now the third one, the growth strategy, is coming out. As you know, tomorrow, Japanese cabinet will approve this growth strategy together with, I don't know what to call it, but it's basic economic policy strategy. And this growth strategy with this growth strategy, we would like to consolidate our economic growth, again, which would contribute to the world economy as a whole. So that is the first point. And the second is the trade liberalization. And under this trade liberalization, there are 3 elements that can be taken up among the leaders. The first one is regional trade agreements. The second one is the promoting WTO negotiations. And thirdly, the enhancing trade in African region. As for the regional trade agreement, as you know, that Japan is going to join the TPP from its July round of negotiations, and we already started FTA or EPA negotiations with Europe, and also we started negotiations with our Asian partners. And what these FTA negotiations or the agreement as an outcome is important for us, because we expect that these agreements will foster or will push forward our structural reform. And what Japan is always advocating for the promotion of WTO DDA negotiations, and especially this year, ministerial conference, 9th ministerial conference of the WTO will be held in Bali at the end of this year, and it is very important to have some tangible result in order to go on with this DDA negotiations. And lastly, and it is expected that the leaders will talk about the enhancing trade in African region. And in this context, you know very well that at the beginning of this month, we had TICAD 5 meeting in Yokohama. And 39 heads of government and states were present from the African countries. And there we agreed that we will forge African trade and investment together with our private sector. And so those those issues that could be taken up by our Prime Minister in this session. Well, next agenda is foreign policy. It is expected that the leaders will have frank discussion on issues such as Syria and Iran. And maybe, well, it could go, they could refer to other issues too, like the peace talks in Middle East peace talks, or Libyan situation in Libya. But from Japan, from Prime Minister Abe, we would like to, or we intend to lead a discussion on North Korea as the only one country from the Asian region. And well, if you can turn to the next page. The next agenda is counterterrorism. As you recall, we had this incident in Algeria early this year, and many of the nationals of the G8 member countries were the victims of this. In this incident, and the chair of the G8 UK intends to have a general discussion on counterterrorism, with a focus on North and West Africa, especially the so-called Sahel region. In case of Japan, as you recall, just after this incident in Algeria, we announced 3 pillars to combat terrorism. First one is international cooperation in counterterrorism, and second is enhance regional stability, and the third one is to promote exchange and dialogue with Arab and Islam countries. And again in the during the TICAD 5, we took up this issue of the peace and stability in the region, and Japan announced 1 billion assistance to this Sahel region, and also we announced some capacity building assistance in order to tackle the issues of terrorism. And also, these are becoming an important area for private investment, and during the TICAD 5, we announced the importance of public-private partnership in countering the terrorism too. And the next agenda is tax and anti-money laundering. Tax avoidance by multilateral companies has become an issue in Europe and in the United States. I understand that there was an issue of involving Starbucks, Google, or in the case of the United States, the CEO of Apple was called to the Congress and summoned to the Congress, and G8 leaders will take this issue of tax avoidance and tax evasion, and also they will talk capacity building of the administration, tax administration in African countries, and also they will talk about the anti-money laundering in order to stop the financing to the terrorism. In Japan was very corporate, is working together with other G8 countries on those issues. Just give you if I just give you an anecdote, the OECD's Committee on Fiscal Affairs is doing a very important job with regard to this tax avoidance and tax evasion issues, or the international cooperation on the tax administration issues. And the chair of this Committee on Fiscal Affairs, is a Japanese Mr. Asakawa. He's the Deputy Director General of the International Affairs of the Finance Ministry. Lastly, leaders will discuss so-called 3 T's. three T's are the priority issue, three priority issues for UK government as a host of this year's summit meeting. They are trade, tax, and transparency, and they will discuss these three issues with the attendance of heads of states from non-G8 countries and heads of international organizations. We call it as an reach out session. So the G8 will share these issues with non-G8 members because of the importance, the global importance of those three issues. As for the trade and the tax, I already explained before. As for the transparency, the intention of the UK government is to raise again three issues. First is the extractive industry transparency. The second is land transaction transparency. And the third one is open data of the government information. And for example, in the case of open data, it is one of the main issues and the government of Japan is trying to promote together with the big data for the private sector. Now the headquarters of information technology strategy is promoting to how to push forward this open data of the government. So these are the points that my Prime Minister may deliver during the coming G8 summit meeting in Lough Erne. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Takase. And now the Q&A session, and we will receive questions from the press people. And would you please raise your hand and wait for a microphone, and then give us your name and affiliation clearly before you ask your question.
Isabel Reynolds from Bloomberg. It's not quite about G8, but I've read that the Prime Minister is going to sign an agreement about on defence with Prime Minister Cameron. Is that correct?
Well, if it's a bilateral question, so maybe Mr. Yamada can answer you. Is it okay, Mr. Yamada? Later, okay. Then another question, please. Lori-san.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times. With regard to transparency, one of the criticisms of the TPP process is that it's extremely untransparent compared to the WTO, for instance. Do you expect this issue to be raised, and if so, what response could Prime Minister Abe make to the claims that it is a highly untransparent process, the TPP? And if I may quickly, on the question of tax avoidance, I always thought tax avoidance was okay, tax evasion is not okay. So why is tax avoidance, which is supposedly a legitimate strategy, on the menu, as it were, here?
First, about the transparency on TPP negotiations, I'm not sure about if that will be taken up during the summit meeting or not. And you know, Japan is not yet full member of these negotiations yet, and we are expecting to join fully from coming July negotiations. And because of that, for example, you are right, because the access to the information of the negotiations is very, very strict. And for example, in case of Japan, we are not yet member, so we have no access to the negotiating text yet. And it will only be given us when we are officially permitted there. But at the same time, understand that and during those round of negotiations, they prepare what they call the stakeholders meeting and try to exchange views with regard to the negotiations. And then we hope that once we join, we will be also able to join this kind of stakeholder meeting too. And as for the tax avoidance and tax evasion, I don't know which one is illegal and which one is legal. But as you said, for example, in the case of Apple, when its CEO was appeared in the U.S. Congress, he was saying that he was nothing. They were doing nothing illegal. And but still, the issue is that those multinationals, it seems that they're not paying enough tax compared to their profit, and especially where it seems like that. They are not paying tax where they are making profit, and kind of there could be some profit shifting, so-called, and so the issue is now very international over the borders. So the international cooperation among the governments are required. And as I said, for example, in the OECD, we are trying to enhance our cooperation on these difficult issues.
Okay, next question, please. Ms. Shida. Yeah, it's coming.
I'm Michi Yoshida with Singapore's Channel News Asia. My question is on regional issues possibly addressed at this summit. You mentioned that Mr. Abe will probably talk about North Korea, but because Japan is the only country representing Asia, I was wondering if you had some foreign ministry official going around to other countries in Asia, gathering information on what issues they want to have addressed in the G8 summit, whether you're going to also address the territorial issue in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. Thank you.
Well, I believe my Sherpa, the Sherpa met Mr. Tsuoka, he's a deputy minister for foreign affairs. He did have some exchanges of views with the embassies here. But I don't know how far. Of course, we are always exchanging views with our embassies in the region, and sharing the information on G8 issues too. And of course, as I said, well, the intention of Mr. Cameron is to have a very frank discussion among the leaders themselves, and once in that respect, it is very difficult for me to foresee what the leaders are going to discuss during the actual meeting, especially this foreign policy session will be held over the dinner, I understand. And well, it is expected that really the frank discussion will be conducted.
Okay.
Elaine Kurtenbach, Associated Press. Thank you very much. Mr. Abe will be talking about the reform plank of his Abenomics program. Can you give us a sense of whether he's going to have much more to tell the G8 leaders than he's already told people back here in Japan? Because so far there hasn't been a great deal of enthusiasm for what they've seen so far in terms of the amount of detail or promise of significant structural change. So, thank you.
I don't think he has something very special only for G8 members. As I said, tomorrow it is expected that the cabinet will approve this growth strategy, and of course, and the growth strategies for Japan itself. So there might be some ways of explaining it to the people outside Japan, but mainly I believe that his explanation will be based on this growth strategy that will be approved tomorrow.
Okay.
Siegfried Dietl, freelancer from Germany. What do you expect from the discussion about Abenomics with the members of the G8? I think German Chancellor Merkel is not happy with Abenomics, and Germany and they're ever talking about structural reform. But you didn't, when you talked about the 3 pillars, you didn't mention structural reform. So what do you expect from the discussion?
Well, the growth strategy itself is a structural reform. It will consist of mainly 3 parts. And first one is to innovation and other basic innovation and other bases to enhance the productivity of the Japanese economy. The second one is to explore new sectors for growth. And the third one is to open up our country to the global economy. Well, as I said, now we will be engaging on several FTA negotiations. And all those we expect that will foster structural reform in Japan. As I said, well, we will explore new sectors for growth. That means, we will expect some structural reform. So this growth strategy itself is, on one hand, it's this regulatory reform, and well, through those regulatory reform, we expect that the structural reform would advance.
Dori-san.
These summits sometimes tend to get hijacked by crises. We've had no shortage of crises in recent years. At the moment, the financial markets are obviously in great turbulence over possible changes in the US Fed's policy. Do you think this summit could also be hijacked by crisis over the international financial situation?
Well, of course, I hope not. And I hope not. And I don't know, in case of the U.S. market, but in case of the Japanese market, the stock market now is very turbulent too, fragile, and we can observe fluctuation too. But I understand that that it's kind of adjustment were needed too.
Okay, as I said before, when it comes to questions about Prime Minister's visit to Europe, Mr. Yamada, who is sitting over there, will answer your questions. And about the G8 summit, any more questions from the press friends? Okay, if you don't have any more question, we'd like to close the session. Thank you very much, Mr. Takase.
Thank you very much.